Hello and welcome back to another episode of the HRER podcast, where we delve into the world of HR emergencies and scandals. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to HRER on your favourite podcast platform.
Get ready for scandalous stories, lessons learned, and a generous dose of advice for HR professionals for navigating the HR landscape.
Our goal here is not just to entertain, but also to help you learn from the topics we touch on in order to save your business from its own emergency.
Really great training isn't enough. It has to fit into really busy work. I mean, crazy busy work-life balance nightmares. I really, truly believe that learning can change your life. I think there's a lot of sweeping statements, sadly, about people that are younger than me. I mean, our average age is around 25. So a lot of sweeping statements are around lazy, all of that. I just don't believe it to be true. Is it just trying to get more productivity out of people? I think the genuine feel at YMU is people are important. Yes, there's a productivity. Yes, obviously it's better for retention and all of those great things for the business. But there's also a sort of moral case for looking after duty of care.
Welcome back to HRER episode 3 of the guest series. I'm Ollie, one of your hosts. Alyssa T? Alyssa T, I shouldn't do that, sorry. Alyssa.
I told you, we're not doing that.
Alyssa to formalise the intro.
I'm Alyssa. Thank you for joining us again on the HRER podcast. We have got Gilly Cohen with us from YMU. She is the Global Head of Performance at the extraordinary prestigious business that is YMU Global. Welcome, Gilly. Thank you for coming on the
hands
podcast.
for so long waiting to clap, and I was like...
So, Gilly, do you want to tell us who you are and what you do?
Yes, I am, as you correctly introduced me, I feel very flattered, Global Head of Performance, with the touch of EDI thrown in as well. So across our group, which is about 350 people, I primarily look after all learning and development across the global group. And performance, interesting title. I have to constantly say to people, I'm not teaching people how to tap dance or sing a song. It is about high performance. So the reason why they brought me on board almost 3 years ago was to create a culture of high performance. So that's really the overarching feel of what I'm doing for the whole workforce.
And high performance, given the environment that you're in. So do you want to tell us what YMU do?
Yes, we are an elite talent management company. So celebrities, really.
Yeah.
But anything from, now I'm not allowed to call them influencers anymore, content creators, to singers, bands, sports people, artists, writers, entertainment, pretty much most people you see presenting on the TV, and a whole host of other people. DSM does a lot of stuff around gaming as well. So we acquire different companies as well. So, yeah.
I remember the first time I went into your, I think it was the London offices, and there's a wall where there's books and things like that. And you realise, like, wow, this is the real deal in terms of the level of
Well, that's about the
people.
clientele.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was very, I was like, oh,
Well.
this is
And they
the
do
job.
pop in.
Yeah.
They do pop in, and they do like to comment on the furnishings in the office and things like that. So it
They like to
feels
move their book and go, no, I want mine in a more.
Mine needs to be in the middle.
exactly that. Can't comment. But yes, no, it could feel very glamorous. I think my background is creative industry, so I'm sort of used to that. But yes, it is sometimes interesting to see who's popping in for a cup of tea.
And when it
Definitely.
comes to learning and development then, so what would you say are the real sort of focus points for when people are working at an elite, real high performance level?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the focus points really for us, and really what I'd say YMU and my superpower is, it's all about people. Always about the people. We look after people, and equally we look after our workforce. So I'd say it's concentrating on developing those skills of high performance, of making sure we're developing people at all times and creating a culture of ongoing learning where people come in, they're excited, there's a buzz around the sort of L&D interventions we're doing. They're passing on, they're becoming super users of particular skills and teaching other people. We're getting people to stand up and talk about stuff they're doing. So it's from really base level to high level. I really advocate everyone talking about what they're doing. So we get finance talking to people about spreadsheets so that they can understand better.
Exhilarating stuff.
That's always sold out. Always sold out.
Love that.
But equally, we get talent managers talking to our legal team. It helps smooth over so many problems. But also, I always love that because it's dual purpose. So they're practicing presentation skills at the same time.
It's a lot easier, I've found, if like departments know what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
Like cohesion, do you know what I mean? It's like a seamless process. So for example, in what I do in like software, you've got like implementation, support, sales. Like it's a process: sales, implementation, support. If they all know what they're doing, everyone else is doing, you can kind of identify with the process in itself.
I totally agree. And also it nips problems in the bud. So if someone is a bit snippy, you know it's because they're dealing with X, Y, or Z, and you know what the process is. And I think also what we're trying to do is to upskill people so that they can almost slightly do that, so that they can take it to, for example, the legal team having a slight better understanding of contracts.
We're not going from a standing start with everything then.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
I mean, I started my career in a global corporate firm, and I remember at the very, very early doors, you are in every department. And I remember at the time, so this is showing my age a little bit, but we had a reprographics department, so everything was still getting bundled and photocopied in-house, and there was a room with like 15 photocopiers. And you'd hear people sniping about the people in there, saying that they were uncooperative and, you know, they didn't work fast enough. I spent a day in there. I'd be like, you know,
understand that.
They're very, very patient people. They're working and actually understanding what it means to be in someone else's job. And the last time I saw it at a really high level operating really well was, this isn't a plug, amazing place though, I went to Glen Eagles. And when they have young entrants there, they go and spend time in every single department so that they understand how the whole machine works.
Idea.
It's really important, and we try and do that at induction. We do that at induction and across really the life cycle of an employee. They get chances to rotate and understand all parts of the business because there are so many different parts. So I think you're right. It is key to understanding. From what you were saying, though,
it sounds like you've got really good buy-in at workforce level. It sounds like, you know, it's not just something that's been implemented and then it tails off like some good initiatives sometimes do. It sounds like it's become the fabric of the workforce.
I think so, yeah. And I think that's for quite a few reasons. I think that's my passion and energy for it. And I really, truly believe that learning can change your life.
I agree.
So I think I take that passion into the workplace, and also I take a realistic stance on what we can do. Really great training isn't enough. It has to fit into really busy work. I mean, crazy busy work-life balance nightmares. So, and it has to be interesting. And I think people have to want to talk about it and want to come to it and want to do it. So it's also brilliant people that I work with who want to come and want to learn and want to get better and want to pass on those skills. But I should also say our CEO is amazing. She's really driven and she really advocates learning as well herself. She's just done a course at Harvard University, and she brought me on from scratch. So just about 3 years ago, I created the function from scratch. So that's really forward thinking for an elite talent management company to actually actively invest in their people. I think it shows that she understands the correlation between sort of productivity, bottom line, all of that. Invest in your people, and I think your company will just benefit.
Yeah. It could easily be, like you mentioned this earlier, that could easily be a box ticking exercise. Like to set up some training courses here and there, sticking in some calendars, job done.
Yeah.
But to be like proactive in it and make sure all the right things are aligned and people are doing the right kind of training tailored to their needs and how they learn. Obviously very important in staff development, isn't it? And retention in the end.
Yes. Massively. I mean, you look on Glassdoor, people are always talking about opportunities for development or training or whatever, and for the reasons being why they might leave a company. And I do think the younger generation, I say sounding very old, expect that. They expect to come and not just have a job, but to have X, Y, and Z around.
We want a career now, don't we?
Want a career, they want perks, and they want learning and development just as a baseline, really.
A clear pathway as well, like
Yeah.
nowadays. And
There's something we touched on with another guest, wasn't it, where we were saying, it's not just a one-way thing anymore. You turn up to work and do your job. People expect stuff from work. It's a two-way relationship, and
not just biscuits.
not just business.
or free fruit, that was one earlier.
Yeah,
right? Free fruit.
yoga as well. So
Yoga,
well-being in the workforce, just chuck some yoga in at lunchtime. It's not enough. We've got to have stuff people can really kind of get behind and buy in. I mean, you sound really passionate about this stuff. How did you get to this point? What brought you into? Because it's quite a niche within the HR world, and you're doing it at a very high level. So how did you get here?
It's a real niche, and I think really what it boils down to is there's a thread of I just love people. I love supporting people. I love helping people learn and develop. And I think you can just see it. You can see a sort of buzz and a light in someone's eyes when they get it or they understand something and they start to see an impact on their performance. So I think I came from creative, freelance, very informal background. And I think what I realised is there was very little training. When I worked in TV production, for example, it's very difficult to even get camera training back in the day. So when you did, it was often on the job. So it made me think, okay, these people that I'm learning from, how do I know if they're teaching me properly? So it started me thinking about learning in general, how you learn, how best to learn. Is it on the job? Is it taken out of the job? A bit like apprenticeships have their 20%. And then I thought, well, I really need to study this. So I did CIPD qualification. I also worked at PACT in what is now called EDI. So it just started to help me to think about how you make training inclusive, how you bring everyone on board, how you put together really great L&D interventions, how you think about different learning styles, how you then embed that learning, and how you get people to want to come to it. So I also trained as a trainer myself, so I know from that background. I feel like I know from every background what's going to stick, what's going to work, and why people will want to come. And also, when I used to train back in the day, the first question we used to ask people was, "Have you been sent here, or have you come of your own accord?"
Interesting.
So I think you have to remember that some training's mandatory and can feel really dry. And I really drive myself really hard to make even the driest training around things like GDPR or cybersecurity, sorry, Mr. IT, as interesting as possible.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is about the trainer, is about who's delivering it, is about the format, how innovative can you be? Can we start using AI in training?
Isn't it? Engagement, getting people engaged, they'll learn better.
Yeah.
There was a day at my old company where we had to sit in a boardroom and there was 5 or 6 speakers throughout this day. First 3 were dreadful. The one guy come in before lunch. He's an Irish chap. He used to be my boss. He come in and he was the guy speaking before lunch. The first thing he did, he walked up to the door. That was to the kitchen. He went, "That's your lunch cooking, guys," and it made everyone laugh. And he disengaged the entire room.
So they relax.
And from then on, everyone was paying attention. Almost like a comedian.
Yeah.
He just sort of engaged people right away with the joke. We were all disarmed. Well, he knows. He wants his food as well. We'll start listening. We can get to lunch quicker.
I think once you accept that an expert isn't necessarily the best person to get people to understand a skill, there is a performance angle in any delivery of training. And I think everyone sat in on a piece of training, L&D, whatever you want to call it, where they've literally felt their soul ebbing away.
Death by PowerPoint.
Death by PowerPoint. Whatever you want to call it. So I think nobody wants to go to that. And also, interestingly, I think the appetite for a long piece of training has gone since COVID.
Oh, yeah.
You very rarely run a day's training, feels like a year now. The formats have changed, the schedules, the timing, the durations, everything has changed. So I think for me, I love the feedback to be organic, that people come out of a room buzzing or come out of an online session buzzing, and it naturally they tell other people or don't.
Word of mouth is one of the greatest marketing tools as well.
Is
if
it?
someone gets a good impression of you, you know what I mean? And they go, "Oh, this woman trained me, she was really great." You probably going to get shoo-ins for other jobs, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Things
it's
like that.
Pushing the industry to develop as well, isn't it? I mean, I think it was last year, the year before, the first time I saw learning by gaming.
Gamification. Yep.
It's just, it's
crazy.
One, the technology that goes in behind it, but also tuning into, well, how do people learn these days? How do we capture their attention? And it's, when I go out and I'm training people, you need to be very, very quickly either know whether something's landing, if it's not.
Yes.
Do we need to change our approach? You don't just kind of go, well, I've prepped this, I'm sticking to my way of doing it. Otherwise, you might as well not be delivering. And I think, the new forums and means of doing it, there's so many options out there. I think it's a really exciting time to be in the industry.
I think it is. And I think there's that side of things that's really exciting. There's also just constantly watching, revising, making sure it's still fit for purpose and is actually landing is key. So I think, yes, you can use something funky and fresh and modern. If the training's not landing, it's not landing, no matter what format it's on. And sometimes back to basics is sometimes the best way.
I mean, in terms of then when you've got juniors coming in, I'm going to glance at Dawn here because every time we talk about Gen Z, she is our advocate.
Don't look at me.
It's the perception, perhaps unfairly so, is that it's a challenging generation in the workforce. It's not the experience I have with Dawn. She's extremely hardworking, very motivated, very engaged, but it's not the experience everybody has. Right. So in terms of your approach then to that generation, what are your thoughts on it in terms of, how do we motivate these people, build resilience? The things that where we say that, very, very sort of discriminatory and broad brush that they're lacking. What do you think the skills are now for people entering the workforce that we need to be working on?
Another really good question. Our workforce is really young, really, really young. But actually, I think the majority of the skills are similar when it comes down to it. I think there's a lot of sweeping statements, sadly, about people that are younger than me. I mean, our average age is around 25. So a lot of sweeping statements are around lazy, all of that. I just don't believe it to be true. I think in creative industry, you work really, really hard. So we don't find that. I find what I'm often encouraging people to do is more around the mental health, work-life balance, remembering to take breaks.
They're working too hard, arguably.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I would say it's understanding to take a lunch break but then I feel it's incumbent on managers to role model that as well. So I wouldn't say that there's particularly specific skills. I think it's more a way of working. And I think that really should be down to a company to showcase that.
Culture, isn't it? And from top down as well, like you said, they're like model the behaviour almost.
Yes. And I think I find, it's sort of a bit reverse mentoring. I feel like I learn a lot from that generation as to how open they are, particularly around neurodivergency or mental health. My generation was it was so taboo.
Closed book more.
Closed book. Yeah. And I can remember when I worked in TV production, I even had written on my CV, I thrive under pressure. It's almost like saying, push me harder, harder, harder. Whereas I think the younger generation are more happy to say,
this is my boundary. I think it's interesting that you just said there that you almost look to Gen Z for pointers of how you should perhaps work a little bit more efficiently.
Totally. My generation was work, 24/7, work till you burn out. A lot of people of my age haven't got children because of it, because they've almost sold their soul. So I think it is, and I'm not saying any generation
me then.
has
No, I thought I heard something behind you.
That can stay in. We're not cutting that.
Tumbleweed.
I look behind you.
But I'm with you on that. I mean, when I first came out of law school and I went into global corporate, I remember at my vacation placement interviews, training contract interviews, saying, I will be here all night. You can call me. I will answer the phone. Work is my life. And that's the way you sold yourself.
You sold yourself as being indestructible, almost like a robot.
Yeah.
So I think it is, I find that really refreshing. And I think particularly as a single parent with 2 teenage daughters, I think it's good to think that you can be that person in the workplace. Back in my day, you didn't even mention you had kids or had any commitments or responsibility. Bearing in mind, I came up through a freelance world where you really are constantly selling yourself.
I think it's important, in the workplace anyway, we spend so much of our lives there just to be open and talk about your life and that, do you know what I mean? Talk about what you're doing at home, or if you're having, to a certain degree, if you're having any issues at home or anything like that. Obviously some things remain private, but it's important for culture and engagement and fostering actual meaningful relationships in work.
It helps knit the workforce, doesn't it? The more you know the people that you're working with, the more you're inclined to trust them. We don't trust strangers. That's the way we're raised, isn't it? Stranger danger, all of
absolutely.
that.
Yes. And we do a lot of work around leadership and being a vulnerable leader who's open about, things that are going on exactly like what you said. So I think it is ultra important to role model these things so that other people can. I mean, I know I used to say to my team back in the day, don't look at me to take a lunch break, but I want you to. Whereas now I'd realise that if they don't see me taking a lunch break, they're not going to take one because they won't feel able to or have permission. So I think we really do. And I think that's going back to my CEO. I think that's why this culture of ongoing learning has succeeded, because she shows it. She takes time off to do learning. So therefore it drips down.
And I presume, your business is reaping the rewards of that at such a high level. The fact that you're so successful, it's your workforce that's doing that, isn't it? So it makes the case for itself.
Yeah. We're really unique as an elite talent management company to really, really invest in our people, in the people that are looking after the people.
Yeah.
You mentioned, it was maybe a few minutes ago now, you mentioned something about mental health. Given sort of that comment, where do you think sort of other employers, other people are perhaps going wrong in that regard? If you can mention that.
I couldn't really comment on where people are going wrong.
Or where do you think you go right?
I think where you can go, I think it is sensitive and really complex. And I think it's so important, especially off the back of COVID, which sounds like a sort of stereotype now. But I think it's really clear, the evidence is there that it's had a massive impact, and even the way we work, it's had a massive impact.
Yeah, a lot.
I think it's really important to, at the very least, have a strategy around it for the workplace. That was one of the first things I did when I started at YMU, was create a mental health and wellbeing strategy. I think if you have an ERG, employee resource group, or committees that support that as well. And I think we have so many things going on. It's amazing, actually. It's incredible, because I think it is very subjective. What works for you may not work for you. What you're prepared to reveal might not be the same for you as for you. So I think there has to be anonymous, confidential, secure, psychologically safe spaces, physically and online or whatever, where people can unveil or feel like they can talk about stuff. People that they can talk to. We have a policy that I implemented to train at least 2 people in every division to be a mental health first aider. And they're badged on their signature so that people know. And it's quite a simple way of just saying, look, I'm here to
You're championing it, aren't you?
We're championing it.
Hard word to say.
So we're
championing it.
Don't get me to say it twice. So we do loads of classic training around mental health, well-being, stress. Obviously, we've just had Mental Health Awareness Week, and the theme was, I think it was Move for the Day or Movement or something or other. So we did loads of stuff around Pilates, yoga, movement style stuff we do and have done as at breakfast or lunch and learns. But also just general basics training around what is stress. Some people don't even realize when they're stressed. So it's realizing those triggers, realizing simple things that you can do, quick wins. So there's that sort of baseline training that's open to everyone and totally inclusive. There's also, we have psychologists, counselors, coaches, even nutritionists on retainer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
To support our workforce. So we're trying to support them in understanding the connection between mind, body,
absolutely,
work, socializing.
A lot of people obviously talk about it more nowadays, like the mental health, and people will come to me and I'll say like, oh, what are you eating? Like, are you exercising?
Yes.
Like, start with the basics.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Start with the real basics, what you're putting in your body and what you're doing with your body. I also offer an open door one-to-one for anyone, really, almost at any time. And some of the first questions I will ask people if they do seem overwhelmed are those sorts of questions.
What are your daily habits? Like, do you have any hobbies, things like that to take your mind off things? It's like start with the very simple things that people often ignore.
Yeah, exactly that. So I think even with all of that, people still slip through the net, but we're trying to catch as many people as possible, as well as having the the classic EAP and all of that you can use as well for free counselling sessions. I just think there's always stuff that you can be doing. And I think even the training itself can help mitigate some of the sort of stress and mental health coming to something outside of your work.
Oh, definitely.
Our workforce work really hard, as do most people nowadays.
I mean, it's really, really refreshing because there's so many companies that I come across where there is the tick box exercise. So they go, we've got the mental health first aiders, therefore, we're done.
Done and dusted.
It's absolutely, it sounds like it's just, and you're obviously, seeing the benefits of it. And one of the things that we discussed with Paul McGregor, who was our previous guest with the Every Mind app, is the support they have for mental health first aiders.
Yes.
And they're saying, that the burden that's on them, and it's something that, to be honest, before talking to Paul, it wouldn't even really be something that I'd think of to think, well, what's the support for the support? But it sounds like you guys are so far ahead of the game.
It's a privileged position to be a mental health first aider, and we have to, in the same way that coaches and psychiatrists have to have their own training with other coaches and psychologists. So it's similar. I think if you are privy to some of the information is incredibly traumatic and harrowing. So we have to support those people as well. So you have refreshers, we have forums where they all meet together, and we can take that on or off site. So I think it's also understanding the impact of where you're leading anything around mental health and well-being, and consciously making decisions that, is it going to be in the workplace? Do people want to be seen to be walking into that room with Gilly? Oh, that looks like they might be having a crisis. Okay, we'll take it off site, or we'll do it online, or we'll make sure there's an anonymous space or whatever it is that makes people feel able to if they need to.
And I do think the positive byproduct of this sort of stuff as well is it's producing a more resilient workforce.
Yes.
So, when you get the critics who say, it's woke rubbish, everyone's too soft, we're pandering to people. Well, we're not. We're giving people the tools to be able to perform at a high level. And, YMU's the evidence of that. You are performing at the highest level, and the people that you've got there, they are supported, they're listened to. So I think you're setting a great example.
It sort of happens. There's a whole suite of activity that just happens. We know what to do now because we've had pretty much all the situations you can think of. So we know how to support, and we know how to people to get up there or go. And I think also you're right about the tokenistic thing, but you're also right to be really conscious about, is it just trying to get more productivity out of people? I think the genuine feel at YMU is people are important. Yes, there's a productivity. Yes, obviously it's better for retention and all of those great things for the business. But there's also a sort of moral case for looking after duty of care, your staff.
Yeah. I think the culture's spreading as well, though. I mean, looks like we're going to get change of government. Regardless of what people feel about those policy changes, the right to switch off is top of the news. It's been trialled in European countries, and it's how far that goes, whether it would be legal to contact someone, or actually that someone can't be penalised for not answering something outside of working hours. I'm dreadful for it. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I see there's a notification, I'll read an email and I'll reply to it, whether it's 1 a.m. or not, which is a hangover from my corporate life. And it's not healthy. When you catch yourself doing it, you think your brain does need to be able to switch off. Whether we need to legislate for it or not, I don't know. But I do think we are evolving generally.
There's a lot to be said about digital detox. There's a lot of thought leadership around that that's really interesting. And what I'll try and do is disseminate that through our intranet so that there's loads of sort of really exciting, buzzy, really great stuff to think about. Maybe try not looking at your phone for an hour at the beginning of the day. The difficulty is for our talent managers, they are sort of on call. So it's having realistic ways of, I'll just say to people often, experiment, challenge yourself, try this, just try not to look at your phone for an hour, or try not to log on, or try whatever
it's hard,
it is.
though, isn't it?
It's really hard.
Well, pre-founder days, there was no excuse. I should have been able to switch off. And I remember when I went to my sister's wedding, my sister got married in Venice, and I arrived in Venice, and she was like, she put her hand out, and I was like, what do you want? She's like, phone. She's like, you are here for my wedding.
You'll pay me attention.
And it's, I'd be away skiing with friends and family, and I was dictating on a ski lift, and it's just, you realise it becomes almost like a level of obsession. And there was the support. I was in a law firm surrounded by assistants, other lawyers. Now's a bit different. When it's your own business, you're a founder, you can't so much. And I do think I should have taken advantage of that when I had the ability to, and not just kind of follow the leader in that industry because it was expected.
Well, we spoke about role modelling, and I think you just do follow the leader, sadly. So I think it does have to be role modelled.
Yeah.
But I think also there's a happy medium. You can only do the best that you can do with what you've got now. And I think it's really key, and it's part of learning, is just to keep trying new things, different things, see which things work for you, see which things stick, and talk about them to your team.
Even if things go wrong as well, you kind of learn what not to do, don't you? So you win it. You kind of win either way. You figure something out.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a classic that we'll often use in training when we do stuff which I call our internal experts, where we get people to pass on information across the business. They might show a contract that's got a few mistakes in it. Can you spot them? What are they? That sort of thing, I think, is really good.
I love a bit of spot the difference as well. Really engaging stuff in it.
You're going to talk yourself into being my assistant if you're talking like that. Like, Ollie, can you just...
Bit of vetting. Bit of text vetting for us.
But you're right about the experimenting thing as well. I mean, I can't at the moment totally digitally detox because there's no one really to leave things with at the moment, and it's kind of one of my goals where I want to go is where I can get back to that point. But little things like turning the bing off when an email comes in, that used to make the level of kind of anxiety in the day when you're working away and it's bing bing bing. Just little things, little tweaks can make the world of difference, can't it?
Totally. I think it's really interesting, all the tools that you can use around productivity now that really support your stress levels, your work-life balance. I think just that ping, just turning your notifications off, or even the act of having a sort of routine or a ritual at the end of the day where you close your laptop, take a glass of water. You're sort of almost
I thought you were going to say
saying
glass of wine then. I was going to go, yeah, I'm with you.
That's right. But I think also it's made more difficult by the working from home, which is still prevalent now.
Where do you draw the line of like work and, do you know what I mean?
Yes, and not everyone has the privilege of having an office. They might be working on their bed or whatever. So how do you differentiate and separate from that? And then it's your time off. You could be working all night.
Yeah. And I think during COVID it was, and afterwards, it's that privilege of working from home. And now I think, so for me, I need that separation. So yes, I know I'm very lucky to be able to work remotely, but at the same time, I'm almost envious of the people who've got the little garden pods and things like that, where you think, well, I can shut the door on the office and now I'm home. I do feel like things are coming full circle.
Can't escape.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we've got time for today.
We've rattled through it, to be fair.
Flown through. You've been a pleasure to have on, Gilly. Thank you so
you.
much for joining us.
Very interesting.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening and for all the comments, suggestions, even the trolls. We love you.
We do.
Please don't hesitate to reach out if you've got any real and nice comments for us on our website or on our socials at Heroes. Ollie?
Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Until next time, we're your hosts signing off from HRER. Take care of your HR and may your workplace be disaster-free. Before we go, a big thank you to you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. If you have your own ER stories or suggestions for future episodes, reach out to us at Heroes or on social media, or even HRER@heroes.co.uk. As we navigate the maze of workplace blunders, remember that no organisation is perfect, but by sharing these stories, we can all work towards creating healthier, happier and more productive workplaces.